My name is Aernoudt. I'm a sound artist working mostly with sound, and I'm interested in finding ways to make sound very tangible. I mostly start with making field recordings. That's where I get mostly my ideas from. And this gives me a way to get closer to sound and to understand how sound can exist and how sound can change your way of behavior, for example. Also, what is interesting when you're making field recordings is that you can understand how the laws of sound can manipulate different behavior, but also how the laws of sound can change how sound changes in the world, for example. And so, yeah, that's an idea to build an idea of how I work. I studied architecture, and after 4 years I stopped with it because I was more interested in sound, and so I always was interested in how sound can change in spaces. For example, for when I make field recordings, for the installation that I will talk about later, I was interested how I could capture wind, for example, and how to make it more like when wind blows in your face, you have a feeling, for example. And I was interested in how I could translate this kind of thing into a kind of an installation, because the wind that I was able to record at the time in Spain was really very pure, and the way I could record it was without any disturbances and turbulences. So that was for me like a groundwork to work on and to find ways to make this feeling or this perception to translate this into an installation. So you see here a little sound tower. I call them sound towers, and the principle is that you have this rotation and you have a little loudspeaker, and they interact both with them. The faster they rotate, the faster it will change the sound, the texture of the sound, because there's some disturbances happening, and because sound pressure is always present. So there's always a change in sound pressure, and this gives the sound a different frequency. It will alter the frequency of the original sound. For this, for example, you have a little motor, a brushless motor, that can rotate very slowly without making any noises in itself. And the loudspeaker is a small speaker that just gives higher frequencies above 800 hertz, for example. And this other, so you have two types of elements. You have this type of element also, and this creates more low frequencies because of the disturbances into the pressure, and it gives more very low sound, that's something that these kind of speakers will not be able to reproduce. So it's kind of a combination of those two elements. And of course every sound tower has its own sounds and its own rotation principles. So another aspect of the installation is that I wanted to create a kind of a tactile or a tangible perceptive installation, and for this it's also important that they all have their own individual properties. They have their own sound, but they work as a group. So they work as a movement. Sometimes, for example, a sound of wind will go in waves across the table, and it will move really from one to the other. And the rotation principle will alter this movement. So you will really have an idea of a movement, and also because they can rotate very fast, the wind will become almost like a cicada, like these little insects that have this chirping sound. So this is like a side effect of it. And also another aspect is that the idea of wind, you will also have it when you listen very carefully to it, and when you put your ear really close to it, you will have this idea when you are on a bicycle and you have the sound of wind that disturbs your ears, but this is kind of sound that you are not aware of sometimes. You just filter this kind of sound out, and it's kind of a play with this kind of feelings and perceptive things. Yeah.